The Kingdom of France in the early modern period, from the Renaissance to the Revolution, was a monarchy ruled by the House of Bourbon. This corresponds to the so-called Ancient Regime. The territory of France during this period increased until it included essentially the extent of the modern country, and it also included the territories of the First French colonial empire overseas. The period is dominated by the figure of the Sun King, Louis XIV, who managed to eliminate the remnants of medieval feudalism and established a centralized state under an absolute monarch, a system that would endure until the French Revolution and beyond. Geography. In the mid-15th century, France was significantly smaller than it is today, and numerous border provinces were autonomous or foreign-held. There were also foreign enclaves, like the Comté Venaissin. In addition, certain provinces within France were ostensibly personal fiefdoms of noble families. The late 15th, 16th and 17th centuries would see France undergo a massive territorial expansion and an attempt to better integrate its provinces into an administrative whole. During this period, France expanded to nearly its modern territorial extent through the acquisition of Picardy, Burgundy, Anjou, Maine, Provence, Brittany, Franche-Comté, French Flanders, Navarre, Roussillon, the Duchy of Lorraine, Alsace and Corsica. French acquisitions from 1461 to 1789. Under Louis XI, Provence, Dauphiné. Under Henry II, Calais, Trois-Rivières. Under Henry IV, County of Foy. Under Louis XIII, Bearn and Navarre. Under Louis XIV, Treaty of Westphalia, Alsace, Treaty of the Pyrenees, Artois, Northern Catalonia, Treaty of Nijmegen, Franche-Comté, Flanders. Under Louis XV, Lorraine, Corsica. Only the Duchy of Savoy, the city of Nice and some other small papal and foreign possessions would be acquired later. France also embarked on exploration, colonization, and mercantile exchanges with the Americas, India, the Indian Ocean, the Far East, and a few African trading posts. Although Paris was the capital of France, the later Valois kings largely abandoned the city as their primary residence, preferring instead various chateaux of the Loire Valley and Parisian countryside. Henry IV made Paris his primary residence, but Louis XIV once again withdrew from the city in the last decades of his reign, and Versailles became the primary seat of the French monarchy for much of the following century. The administrative and legal system in France in this period is generally called the Ancient Regime. Demography. The Black Death had killed an estimated one-third of the population of France from its appearance in 1348. The concurrent 100 Years' War slowed recovery. It would be the early 16th century before the population recovered to mid-14th century levels. With an estimated population of 11 million in 1400, 20 million in the 17th century, and 28 million in 1789. Until 1795, France was the most populated country in Europe and the third most populous country in the world, behind only China and India. These demographic changes also led to a massive increase in urban populations, although on the whole France remained a profoundly rural country. Paris was one of the most populated cities in Europe. Other major French cities include Lyon, Rouen, Bordeaux, Toulouse, and Marseille. These centuries saw several periods of epidemics and crop failures due to wars and climatic change. Between 1693 and 1694, France lost 6% of its population. In the extremely harsh winter of 1709, France lost 3.5% of its population. In the past 300 years, no period has been so proportionally deadly for the French, both world wars included. Language. Linguistically, the differences in France were extreme. Before the Renaissance, the language spoken in the north of France was a collection of different dialects called oil languages, whereas the written and administrative language remained Latin. By the 16th century there had developed a standardized form of French which would be the basis of the standardized, modern, French of the 17th and 18th century, which in turn became the lingua franca of the European continent. Nevertheless, in 1790, only half of the population spoke or understood Standard French. The southern half of the country continued to speak Occitan languages, and other inhabitants spoke Breton, Catalan, Basque, Dutch, and Franco-Provençal. In the north of France, regional dialects of the various langues d'oil continued to be spoken in rural communities. During the French Revolution, the teaching of French was promoted in all the schools. The French used would be that of the legal system, which differed from the French spoken in the courts of France before the Revolution. Like the orators during the French Revolution, the pronunciation of every syllable would become a new language. France would not become a linguistically unified country until the end of the 19th century. Administrative structures. The Ancien Régime, a French term rendered in English as Old Rule, Old Kingdom, or simply Old Regime, refers primarily to the aristocratic, social and political system established in France from the 15th century to the 18th century under the late Valois and Bourbon dynasties. The administrative and social structures of the Ancien Régime were the result of years of state-building, legislative acts, internal conflicts and civil wars. But they remained a confusing patchwork of local privilege and historic differences until the French Revolution brought about a radical suppression of administrative incoherence. Economy.